Yeah, just start where you're going to start there. I was doing some prepping. I was listening to Chateau, Chained and Desperate, just prior to doing this. So I'm already I'm up and ready on my 1983 prepping. You know.
So first album to talk about, Exciter, Heavy Metal Maniac. 40 years of that. Unbelievable record.
Yeah, I mean it's no, hang on. Heavy Metal Maniac 1983. I thought Heavy Metal Maniac was 1982. No,
I think the deal was that they recorded it as a demo in 1982 and then sent it to Shrapnel, and Shrapnel just released it.
Because I'm looking at it here now, January the 14th, Exciter, Heavy Metal Maniac. I mean, I have a very old, or is it old? But I think it might even be a bootleg copy of the CD of it. I have it on record as well, but I have the CD of it, and it has a song called World War III, which is from a sampler, and that must be 82.
Yeah.
Because people talk about Heavy Metal Maniac as the same year as Black Metal, but Black Metal is 82. So yeah, January the 14th, 1983. There you go.
Yeah, but such a great, I think it really ushered in the era, as you said, Venom kind of really started off the whole, punk influence metal, but this is, in my opinion, this is just as important a record, because if it wasn't for Heavy Metal Maniac, you wouldn't have had that kind of thing,
Yeah, I mean, I take Kronos's retro fitted view of things with a bit of a pinch of salt, because I don't hear much punk in Welcome to Hell or black metal, certainly not in the imagery and the aesthetic and stuff. There's no doubt they probably were a bit into Sex Pistols, but I don't think Venom were sitting around listening to Discharge or something like that. I think it's really Motorhead with a little bit of Kiss and a sprinkling of this and that and the other. It's just sort of suited him somewhere along the way to write all these bullshit metal punk songs, But I think it's more the fucking fact that Welcome to Hell is recorded and mixed in about 6 hours, and they couldn't play it very well. That it just sort of happens to sound like that. But I mean, they're wearing satin fucking shirts and bullet belts and hippie hair. It certainly isn't the punk zeitgeist of 81. So I always take that shit with a pinch of salt. It's like same thing when people say Show No Mercy is punk, and I go, no, it's as far away from punk as could possibly be. Eyeliner and spandex, and I mean, they look more like fucking Boston than they look like a punk rock band,
I think that was just a case of those guys in Slayer were just into bands like Kiss and Iron Maiden, and because they saw Kiss wearing makeup, same as Overkill, they were just like, yeah, this is.
I think there's probably a fair bit of Alice Cooper and a bit of stuff like that going on as well. But I think that you can hear, certainly, I would say you can hear between Show No Mercy and Haunting the Chapel. You can hear, obviously, this is where Slayer discovered lots and lots of hardcore and lots of punk. I mean, if you listen to Cryonics or something like or Final Command, this is just Judas Priest on meth, I don't hear punk rock in it. But I think you can hear then as we get into the 84 and 80, certainly not 85, but I think Hello Oasis has got more to Merciful Fate than to any sort of punk or hardcore. But it's no doubt that they were listening to it because of the speed, but I think it's a kind of retrofitted view. That I mean,
speaking of retrofitting, on Exciter's,
I said that twice,
on Exciter's Wikipedia page, it says that they sold 3 million copies of that album, Heavy Metal Maniac.
Come on now. 3 million copies. I mean, the biggest Judas Priest album is what? Defenders of Faith, like 3.5 million. So they're saying Exciter on Shrapnel Records.
It's one of those classic Wikipedia pages you can tell someone from the band wrote, because it's got a perspective that no one else could possibly know. Where it's like later that night he called the bass player kind of thing.
Well, how could they? I mean, somebody was saying to me that Joey DeMaio did an interview recently, and he said Manowar sold 30 million records. I mean, that would put them just behind Megadeth, but on the par with Slayer or something, I mean, we're arguing about it, and I was going, well, they might have a couple of albums around about 600,000 to 900,000 copies, Kings of Metal Fighting the World and stuff. And you add them up, and they're probably a good few million. There's no doubt about that. But 30. So it
But
says.
speaking, man, of a good few million. Next one on the list, Pyromania, Def Leppard. Look.
Well, hang on. You missed out. Well, you've missed out Acid. Their debut Acid, which is pretty cool. Belgian speed metal with Kate,
like on one of the early Mausoleum kind of bands, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, and Chateau, a band that I've just listened to this before this. A friend of mine, Krilla from Unpure. My lasting memory of Chateau is having a like 4 or 5 a.m. late night drinking thing, and he was just to himself, no one likes Chateau, 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 just sort of howling into the void about how no one appreciated Chateau. Until we put on Chained and Desperate, and they were like, okay. It's a ballsy
bands, like there's a whole genre of those bands from the Benelux in that era that, you know, I just could never really, you know, like Acid, Picture, you know, Trance. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of them, and they're all very similar sounding. It's just kind of, you know, moderately. Yeah.
Ostrogoth were okay. What did a Picture had heavy metal ears, didn't they? that was the big one. And there was one called Double Cross or something, a Belgian one. I remember that it always being secondhand in Dublin, and it had like a sort of Mexican sort of pyramid with 2 big eyes coming out of a skull on it or something. The Chateau artwork is interesting because they've the ballsy move of not putting their logo on the cover, which I think is interesting. You know,
I think that album cover you were talking about is Crossfire. So it is.
Crossfire, that's it. Yeah. Crossfire with a K. Yeah. Oh no, with a C. Yeah. I might even have that record. Chateau, I mean, the main theme seems to be that the rocker in the are you looking at the artwork right now?
No, I can though.
Yeah, you should look at it at the same time. I'm looking at your link you sent me on this day in metal. And the thing about the Chateau artwork is that it looks like his guitar has been chained to the wall as well. He's chained to the floor, and a sort of gargoyle is kind of holding him captive. And it would seem tormenting him by not letting him rock. Can you see it there?
That would make absolute sense, really, wouldn't it? Like, yeah.
He's still retaining quite strong traps, though. You can see on his back, which I'm quite impressed by. And he's still got like his heavy metal gauntlets on.
I wonder, like, was this music even meant for people in English-speaking countries, do you think? Or were they just like, we only want to sell this to French people, possibly Canadians? That's about it, you know?
Well, I mean, they are singing in English, aren't they? I mean, it's just, you've got Satan, Jokers, Trust, Sortilege. And I just find French just not the most conducive language to heavy metal. It's just, I don't know, it doesn't sit with me. I'd rather obviously hear German. It seems a bit more harsh or something. But yep. Sortilege are a band I mean, they're not bad, like, but I never loved them the way I knew loads of other people loved them. I think some of it was to do with Sortilege's artwork was kind of killer, you know?
So speaking of, do you think that, like, so Pyromania, obviously,
okay, yeah,
massive,
Pyromania.
Massive,
January the 20th, 1983.
Yep. Like, is it the biggest selling record of that year?
It must be. I mean, it sits at about 20 million, just under, I think, 18, 19 million. By the way, I should tell you that you look like you've got 2 little ears because of the 2 things on the wall behind you.
These are my heavy metal mouse ears.
Well, heavy metal ears. Just
I don't get cred from a Nasty Savage top.
Oh yeah. No, that's fair enough. Yeah. Well, heavy metal ears, seeing as we said it. I mean, picture, you know. Yeah, Pyromania is the kind of like the sort of one that launched 1,000 fucking ships, didn't it? It's like, I mean, I think it's a fucking brilliant record. I mean, I love the one before as well, but it's it's, you know, I don't think people realize how much bigger Def Leppard were than almost everybody. I mean, this album is probably what, 6 times sold 6 times more than the biggest Priest album, biggest Maiden album. I mean, what did AC/DC release that year? Flick of the Switch. I mean, it dwarfs Flick of the Switch, you know. Shout at the Devil.
I think the whole thing though was like, because they had Mutt Lange on board, and Q Prime management, they were able to say, listen, we're going to get the experts in here and crack America correctly,
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it is to do with photographs. Sorry, my chair is ridiculously squeaky. I need a new chair. Photograph is like, I mean, you can see how photograph influenced all the Cinderellas and the Rats and stuff, the sort of polished pop chorus kind of thing. But Foolin' and stuff. I mean, I don't think, I can't imagine, I can imagine that record being pulled from the shelves after 9/11, can't you? Look at the artwork.
I think Americans are so absolutely intrinsically connected to pyromania that they wouldn't even consider that. They'd be like, victims of 9/11 would want you to listen to Def Leppard, if anything,
I can imagine it being called January the 20th. I mean, yeah, Def Leppard aren't they like the biggest selling UK band of the 1980s or something outrageous? They've 3 albums that sit between, I mean, Hysteria is like 30 million. Maybe it's in the UK. Hysteria is like 30 million, isn't it? 26 or something. This is like 17 or 18. And I'm sure the one Adrenalize did like 8. And the others did 2 and 3. They've got something outrageous like 70, 80 million or more in the 1980s.
Pretty mad. Did you see Joe Elliott's unbelievably cringeworthy appearance in that Ghost video?
I mean, I don't really understand what's going on. Like, I like the first Ghost album. I even like Meliora. I like some of the EPs. But that last album is awful. It's really bad. It sounds like it's really bad. Like, and the horrible punny lyrics that just don't make any sense.
Did you see that video though? Did you know?
Yeah. He's in the pub and what's going on? Also, the production of the song is horrible.
Yeah.
Like totally overproduced and saturated. I don't really understand it. Like, who are they trying to appeal to?
Speaking of unbelievably brilliant, awful production, what about Savage, Loose and Lethal then?
Oh, that's on this list, isn't it? Well, we've gone past Satan Jokers. I must admit, I've never heard that record. I mean, just the cover, Le Fil du Metal. I've seen it in secondhand racks, but I just, my 13-year-old self is like, Satan Jokers? Nah, get out of here. Battle Axe, Burn This Town. I'll tell you what about Battle Axe before we get to Loose and Lethal. What's that band? Wasn't the singer of Battle Axe Power from the Universe? Isn't that the guy who then was in Kathmandu, who's now, what's that? Not Dropkick Murphys, the other, Flogging Molly.
Really?
Dave something or other. He was in this Led Zeppelin kind of band in the 90s called Kathmandu. And he sang on Battle Axe Power from the Universe, which is this Burn This Down, which is brilliant artwork.
But so they are, they're British, aren't they?
Well, I think he was Irish, wasn't he? The Flogging Molly guy. At least he was, I think he was from like Drogheda or Dundalk or something, wasn't he? We could be using
Dundalk's claim to fame there. Dundalk's claim to fame.
Yeah, well, you know, I could actually look this up, couldn't I? And I mean, people will appreciate my, you know, commitment to not posting mis or disinformation. I mean,
spreading malicious and false information about Battle Axe on the internet.
Listen, Dave King, he is an Irish singer, musician, and songwriter. He's currently a member of the band Flogging Molly. But he was originally, he was in Fastway. Okay. He was in Kathmandu, I was right. Happy Apple. I don't know, he appears to, it doesn't say he was in Battle Axe, but he was in Fastway. My uncle made it. Oh yeah, Battle Axe, there you go. Fucking hell, check out the Big Brain on Brad. My uncle did an album cover for Fastway, actually. I think the first ever album cover he designed.
Is it one of those Czech kind of album covers, is it?
I think, I'm pretty sure he did that, yeah. He was a young fella working in the sort of up and coming in the graphic artist department. It was obviously just handed, here, do something with this.
Totally. And I'd say that was exactly how it worked, where someone was like, he was saying, can I do this Huey Lewis and the News album cover? And they're like, no, you're the new guy. You have to do Battle Axe.
You get, oh, he didn't do Battle Axe. If I said he made the Battle Axe album cover, which is, you know, a guy with, we're going to have to bring this up while we talk about this. A guy, I mean, he's got very furry boots and he's kind of driving a motorbike through
an apocalypse.
Yeah. Well, Savage, Loose and Lethal. Yeah, I have this on record. I mean, this is Vivian Campbell, isn't it?
No, that's Sweet Savage.
That's Sweet Savage. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But this is a killer album cover, isn't it? And I think because our friend Jarvis was in these guys for a while, or maybe still is in these guys.
Was that not Jaguar? No.
Was it? I thought he was in Savage as well.
The thing I like about the cover, I mean, he sort of has like a spinning sort of. It could be a conker, but he appears to be. He's batted the head in off some sort of alien with a helmet on.
Robot, a fellow robot. Oh no! Look, it says these are cops. If you look down in the very left-hand corner, it says City Police on the guy's helmet.
Right.
Nice one. This was apparently recorded in their front room in a housing terrace, wherever in England.
Really?
They kept getting phone calls from the police and stuff like that because they were making a heavy album in a terrace house, you know.
But where were they from then?
Like Middlesbrough or somewhere like, you know, more Midlandsy or somewhere like that, maybe. I don't know.
It's one of those albums that you know, you can see they sort of had promise, but Ebony Music, oh yeah, they released loads of stuff, didn't they? 1983. Okay, the Encyclopedia Metallum says that Loose and Lethal has got to be one of the first ever speed thrash attempts by a UK band. That's a fucking weird thing to say, isn't it?
No, but like people always throw these terms around just because, like, you know, like, would you describe the Scorpions, She's a Woman, He's a Man, as a speed metal song? Not really. It's just like a fast song, isn't it? Like, you know, so it's not really any more different than a fast AC/DC song, like, you know.
No, it's just weird also because, I mean, you could have taken a whole lot of things from Neat Records in 81, 82 and said, well, I mean, obviously Venom is more speed thrash, isn't it, than Savage, Loose and Lethal, Raven, Avenger.
It's actually probably one of the first albums, Loose and Lethal, to have a pretty like accurate guitar tone. It's very distorted and very kind of rocking sounding, you know.
Do you think so? I mean, I need to listen to it again. I mean, I bought it on record. It's one of those things that you scooped up in a secondhand store for 4, 5, 6 quid 20, 30 years ago, and you kind of made an impression on me. It didn't make a huge impression on me, but like I'm aware of its existence. And you know, I suppose there was a moment in 1995 where I was like, oh, Savage, Loose and Lethal, and did a couple of about it, and then kind of went, oh, okay, it's not that great.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just one of those things, isn't it? Where at the time, obviously, there was a chance of them breaking through and becoming a bigger band, but same as even a lot of the neat bands, like I think they were so constrained by being on a label that had no money that, you know, they were never really going to do anything apart from open for people at the marquee or do that sort of thing, you know?
Don't know. You kind of wonder. I mean, like I said, I'd be laboring under this misapprehension that Venom never toured. They said this themselves. And then my mate from Germany, Dennis, who's probably watching, shout out to Dennis, he started to send me links, and it was like Venom live in 82 in Popperingen, in like small enough shows in Belgium and Holland. It's like as if Venom remade their myth to say, oh, we never played any club shows. And then I believed that for fucking 30 years. And then slowly but surely, I started to get links and bootlegs, and there's bootleg vinyls of like all of these shows, but there's one which is like Venom's first show. I posted it on Instagram. The poster for
this would have been like the first Aardschok day, you know.
That's 84 though. But
no, I think it's 83 because they had, or maybe even 82, because they know they had Venom and Jaguar and Savage and bands of that nature at it. So Venom were clearly doing that.
The Aardschok festival, like.
Yeah, Aardschok Dag. Because the famous story is that, do you remember whenever you were young, you would get fireworks repeaters, which is like it's a square box that has like 50 little rockets, and they'll all go off in sequence.
Yeah.
So apparently, the story is that Venom were playing in some working man's club. This is when Jesus Christ was still their singer, and they had this firework on stage, and it fell over, and all the fireworks started shooting into the audience. And after that, they were like, "Okay, we need to try and reserve ourselves for bigger places than working men's clubs."
Aardschok festival. Well, I'm finding it hard to find a fucking list. I've got lots of okay, hang on. Aardschok Festival 1982. Oh, this is a magazine. Sammy Hagar, Magnum, Gillen.
I think it was called Aardschok Dag or Earthquake Day.
Aardschok Day Festival. This is going to make good viewing, watching me try and Google things.
When you go, you're right, Joe. You're correct about that. Because I think that was just the budgeting scene, wasn't it?
Hang on now. 1982, the headliner was Bitches Sin, and they played with Picture, Vandale, Crossfire, and Impact. 1983, Venom. Accept, it appears to say.
Lovely.
85, Ingrid Malmsteen. Oh, look at this fucking hell.
Because 84 was Venom and Metallica, wasn't it?
Okay, 83. Wait, hang on. I have it here now. 83, Accept, Merciful Fate, Raven, Vandenberg, and Trance. Then February the 11th, 1984, Metallica, Venom, Merciful Fate, Horizon, Tokyo Blade, and Savage. 86, Halloween, King Diamond, Agent Steel, Laz Rocket, Avalon.
Lovely.
87 had two editions. Metallica, Anthrax. Oh, Metallica, Anthrax, Celtic Frost, Metal Church, Crimson Glory, Laz Rocket.
That's the one you want to go to there, man, isn't it?
Well, wait a second. And then the 29th of May, Megadeth, Testament, Flutsman, Jetsam, Nuclear Assault, Vicious Rumors, and Sanctuary opening.
Lovely.
God damn it.
So apparently, I was reading an interview with Metallica, and they said that in 1982, before they made Kill 'Em All, they were invited to go over and play the Aardschok Festival.
Really?
On the strength of the demo. So that'll give you an idea of how insanely popular their demo was, that an unsigned band from California were being asked to go and play at a festival in Belgium, or Holland rather.
Well, I read some stories and some it was some I think it would have been, wasn't it on that Need Records thing, where they were saying that Venom were invited to go over and play with Metallica in New York, and they went over for like 2 weeks before the one show just to stay in, was it the Zazula's house, just partying with Metallica, just like 2 weeks of going out in the piss, eating chips and drinking beer. Like,
somebody also told me that Venom used to go over to over to America or over to Holland and not play shows and just go to hang about at other shows and sign autographs and just hang around with their white jackets on, you know.
There's a story. I met one dude in Germany once, some old metaler dude who had gone over to Newcastle looking for them, like just on the off chance he went there to sort of mill around Newcastle, see if he could find them, and ended up hanging out with them. And what did he tell me? He said he ended up going out drinking beers and taking angel dust with them. I was like, well, that's quite a nice story.
Sounds about right. What have you got next then?
I've got a band I never gave a shit about. And what was it? Give me a H-E Helix from Canada.
It's not really, like, in my mind, like, classing this sort of stuff as metal, is it really, like, it's kind of like Triumph. It is rocking, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just like Canadian rock, like, you know, isn't it?
Didn't they get they got an upswing when they had that song Heavy Metal Love was in Trailer Park Boys. And the wedding scene. And I got these people messaging me going, what's the song? In Trailer Park Boys. You'd know what it was. And I was like, it's Helix Heavy Metal Love. And then it kind of got a moment where it would just get put on in people's houses. People kind of loved it, you know. But
one of those things, like, we'll talk about them later, but same as Crocus with like Nightwolf or Headhunter, like people are like, yeah, this is boogie on down.
Crocus had one of the worst lyrics I've ever heard, and that's the one when he's what's the song? And he's like, ain't got time for a BLT. Like, he hasn't got time to stop in the train station and have a BLT. He has to rush to get his train. And he just figured, well, what rhymes with whatever, putting on my something LP BLT. I mean,
perfect.
Yeah. Ain't got time. But he hasn't got time for BLT. Well, actually, the next one on the list, I mean, this is a huge fucking record. This changed everything. This is Quiet Riot, Mental Health.
I think this is why it's so important. People don't really realize this, as you said.
Yeah.
Pyromania and Quiet Riot,
Changed
two
the game.
albums that like literally selling millions and millions of records in America, and making American record labels say we need to sign some of these sort of bands. You know,
it's so bizarre because as I understand the, I mean, I've talked about this before and various other things, and people don't really kind of believe me, but Quiet Riot, Mental Health. I mean, didn't it replace Thriller at #1 in the American album charts or something?
I know it did outrageous business, you know,
and
like
the first single was Come Up Feel the Noise, and then Metal Health. It was the first. Metal Health was the first heavy metal album to reach #1 on the Billboard 200 chart. Think about that.
Yep.
Sorry, replacing the Police's Synchronicity.
Which is probably, and now though that I think Synchronicity did not come out in 1984 though, but that'll probably give you an idea of fucking the legs that this had. You know?
Well, I'll tell you, the album went on to sell more than 10 million copies worldwide. I mean, that's fucking insane. And this is the band who people don't know. They gave Randy Rhoads to Ozzy. And they have
but like, I think probably a lot of people, like you would imagine that at least what, you know, 8 million of those must be in America. You know, I don't think that were they ever a huge draw everywhere else.
Quite right. They seem like one of those bands, a bit like a mini Van Halen, and I'm not really sure. I'm sure they did come over and play in Europe. They must have played in Europe, but I mean, it feels like they just kind of.
Where did Ozzy Osbourne on the Bark of the Moon tour in Europe? And somebody said that, I remember reading a review of it where they said that their set was 40 minutes long and there was a 10-minute drum solo and a 10-minute guitar solo.
Well, I mean, you know that footage of what is that huge festival in '83 in the desert? I mean, Quiet Riot play after Judas Priest and stuff. I mean, they're Motley Crue are opening. I mean, what's it called?
US Festival.
I mean, that would killer name, but like US Festival. I mean, who else played? The Scorpions played, didn't they?
What are they called? Triumph definitely played. Judas Priest, Motley Crue, Van Halen were the headliners, I believe.
I have a feeling it might have been Quiet Riot, no?
No, I don't think they were at that stage quite yet. But yeah, it's crazy. Like whenever you see the footage of Motley Crue or Priest set, and you're just saying, holy shit, there's literally 300,000 people here.
Oh yeah, here we go. It's here we go. Okay, well, I mean, so Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Sunday is the metal day. Motley Crue opening. Joe Walsh. Who's Joe Walsh? Is that the Eagles, is it?
Yep.
Ozzy Osbourne, then Judas Priest. Yep. Triumph third from the top. Fucking hell. Scorpions and then Van Halen. Do you want to hear the other 2 days, what the lineups were in the other 2 days?
I kind of think I probably know. I know that they had like U2 were on it and like the Thompson Twins and like big country bands like that, wasn't it?
Okay, Saturday, it opens with D Vinyls. Wow. In Excess, Wall of Voodoo, Oingo Boingo.
Brilliant.
Flock of Seagulls. Wow. The English Beat, Stray Cats, Men at Work, and The Clash headlining. Stray Cats third from the top.
That's crazy, isn't it?
And then Monday, it opens with Little Steven and the Disciples of Soul. Okay. Berlin. Like Take My Breath Away, Berlin. Quarter Flash. Don't know what that is. U2. Missing Persons. The Pretenders. John Cougar Mellencamp. Stevie Nicks, and then David Bowie at the top.
No, that's pretty damn fucking all right bill there, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and can you imagine what the fucking facilities were like on that? Jesus Christ.
Probably very poor. I'd say there was probably one porta toilet for the 300,000 people at that stage, you know?
Yeah. And like no bottles of water or something. Well, actually probably it was, I mean, you know, we've all watched the 99 fucking Netflix documentary of that fucking nightmare. The what you call it?
Woodstock 99.
Yeah, that's incredible. But anyway, but yeah, people don't really realize Quiet Riot, Metal Health, how, and it's what's weird is that it's so important and it's not really a great album. It's like
no, it's not. Like it's just It's very content free. You know, the song "Mental Health" is brilliant. You know, it is a classic song, but generally, it's fucking not a great record. Like.
No, I mean, Slick Black Cadillac is okay if I remember correctly, but it's kind of, you know, a slightly pastiche, bubblegummy heavy metal. I mean, it's certainly not Screaming for Vengeance or Accept but it's not bad. DeBro's voice is all right, you know. But you know,
I think that's what America needed, though. Like, I don't think that we're ready for, like, Judas Priest was never going to become like a #1 band in America because the music was too niche. Whereas like Quiet Riot, it was close enough to stuff like Van Halen, or it was close enough to things like that, you know.
I guess you could say it's just about dumb enough to be able to succeed, you know. Priest is a little bit too, Maiden is a bit too.
Like, they're the total example of a band with a fleeting, you know, like their audience were just people who liked modern pop music. You know, they weren't hanging on, waiting for the next record.
No.
By the time they got to the next record, half their audience had disappeared, you know.
Oh, more than half. I mean, the ones after that, you can watch some of their videos of some of the songs for after that where they got huge budgets. There's one where they're all shrunken, playing in a doll's house and stuff. It's fucking mental. But I think we should say, though, that AC/DC did kind of open the doors before this. Don't forget, Back in Black is 80. And that's probably by the time this has come out, Back in Black is already sitting at 10 or 15 or 20 million copies. So, you know, Quiet Riot is more really hard rock than like heavy metal, you know. But whatever happened that summer, Metal Health just clicked into being the fucking song of the summer, you know.
What about Saxon's Great Hope for Breaking America record, Power and the Glory?
Well, let's talk about that, and I'll have to pause to the end of this.
In progress.
Saxon, Power and the Glory. This is one of the first Saxon albums I got. I got on cassette from somebody when I was about 12 or 13. Somebody, I just randomly gave it to me in school. You might like this. I'd always thought the song itself, Power and the Glory itself, is a fucking banger. And then Red Line, Warrior. It's not. I mean, it's wow.
It's okay. Like, I don't think they knew what they were doing, because it was slightly before they really tried their hand at doing a commercial record. You know,
it was recorded in Atlanta, Georgia, the fall of 1982. It sold over 1.5 million copies worldwide, according to Wikipedia, and it entered the Billboard Top 200 at number 155. There you go. And in 2005, Power and the Glory was ranked number 376 in the 500 greatest rock and metal albums of all time. Wow, okay, that's fucking ridiculous. This Town Rocks, not great. I mean, The Eagle Has Landed, okay, that's a fucking classic. But Watching the Sky Midas touch down and down and down and down, it's not bad. Like, it's a weird production. It's very hollow, and the bass.
Yeah.
Clang, 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 clang.
I think what they wanted was like a Mutt Lange type production. They wanted to move up into the next zone, but the songwriting is just not as good as the early ones. You know, is the live album from this tour, or is it?
It's before this. It's before this.
The Eagle Has Landed. It was brilliant. Like, you know, I think that's. I'm going to recommend anyone any Saxon product whatsoever above Wheels of Steel. I would say The Eagle Has Landed. It's fantastic.
I mean, my favorite is, fucking Strong Arm of the Law and no, Motorcycle Man and all that. What's the name of that fucking record?
Like, Wheels of Steel.
That's Wheels of Steel, is it? No, it's not.
Yeah. See, the thing that you lose on those ones is Biff's whistling. You know, like, that's such an integral part of Saxon's shows, is him whistling like fuck. Like, so you get to hear all the whistling in high definition on The Eagle Has Landed. You know,
the Barnsley Big Teasers were formed in 1975. They sold more than 15 million albums worldwide, according to Wikipedia, which is half as many as Manowar. And Heavy Metal Maniac by Exciter sold 1/5 of Saxon's entire records.
But again, see, this is the thing with this, right? So say we're going to be totally generous and say Wheels of Steel sold 4 million copies.
Well,
you know,
no,
and
well,
the subsequent album sold 2 million copies. I don't like. They're not going to be able to get that high up because all the albums after this, like Crusader and stuff, are not selling any records.
no, well, let's say this, right? I think 4 million is way too much. But let's say Wheels of Steel, Strong Arm the Law, and this whole cadre, 3 or 4 or 5 albums, they all sold 1 to 2 million each. Before you know it, you've got the guts of 10 million there, and then probably you add in the other 10 or 12 albums, which were a couple of 100,000 each. Yeah, you'll get to 15 million. It doesn't sound. I mean, like there's chart entries for all the records here, you know, and they played huge festivals and they've this, that, and the other. Whereas, you know, 1983's Power and the Glory, their best-selling album to date. As the new British heavy metal movement began to fade. So Power and the Glory, the biggest album, 1.5 million, it says. I mean, okay, so
I think part of the reason why that is because the Iron Maiden Peace of Mind tour is Fastway, Saxon, and Iron Maiden. So, you know, they were probably getting to play, you know, playing arenas in the States. Well, they're not really arenas. Yeah, they're like they're ice hockey.
They might be doing I'd say those early 80s, they must be doing 2,500, 3,000, 3,500 in the States.
Well, that was the whole Maiden's gamble, was that, you know, they'd gone out supporting bands on Number of the Beast and stuff, and they said, listen, if we get someone like Fastway, who not really that well known, and someone like Saxon who can draw 1,000 or 2 on their own, maybe Maiden and Saxon together could get 4,000 or 5,000 people into an ice rink, you know.
I mean, you know, it does say here on Wikipedia that Crusader sold over 2 million copies worldwide, so which kind of contradicts what it just said in the one before. That you know, but Innocence. Did you know that Elton John played in 2 songs on Rock the Nations?
Yep.
There you go.
And he's also on that. He's on that Twisted Sister record with "Be Cruel to Your School" and stuff, isn't he? That's one of his.
I hate that song. I fucking hate that song. I mean, Twisted Sister are one of the best live bands I've ever seen, but they don't have some amount of fucking shite on some of those records, you know. The two
I think one of the bands, though, kind of like, it's like the Ramones. It's like now you've seen what it looks like and hear the songs. It's like, who cares what's on their other albums? Because when you go and see them, they're only going to play songs from the first couple of records, aren't they? Like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I love the Ramones and all, but once you get to about 83, 84 Ramones. Yeah. I mean, I remember Pet Sematary was the big one when I was growing up. My mate loved that.
But like all the ones before it, like Rocket to Russia and all, aren't really particularly, or like Suburban Underground or whatever it is.
I like Rocket to Russia. That's got like Rockaway Beach and Cretin Hop and Judy.
Actually, no, yeah.
Rocker. I mean, it's Too Tough to Die, maybe. No. Anyway.
No, it's Suburban Underground or whatever. That's the one I'm thinking of. But so, okay, speaking of getting in co-creos, what about Headhunter by Crocus? Like,
is that on the list?
Yep.
Well, let's go. I mean, the list now has Zebra. I've never heard of Zebra. I would never listen to a band called Zebra. Forget about it. Even when I was 11 or 12, I was like, nope. I was still quite like, not. I'd be embarrassed at 11 to listen to a band called Zebra. Silver Mountain, Shaking Brains. Oh wait, it's not Coffee Beans. They're Brains. Wow. Never heard that record. Never even heard of it. Okay, here we go. Crocus, Headhunter. Yeah, Crocus are one of those sort of sub AC/DC heavy metal bands. I mean, from Switzerland, right?
Yeah. I think they got in by default because like there was a huge upswing in people liking metal, and it's accessible because it's basically boogie rock, you know, isn't it?
But they had some good songs. I mean, this album is quite good, Headhunter. They had some good riffs, and they were like a way better version of Quiet Riot. Do you know what I mean?
Way better. And I think they were just lucky enough so that kind of like a miniature version of the Scorpions' success in America, they could go over there and, you know, play to 1,000 people in a roadhouse in Texas kind of thing, you know. They
were formed in 1974 as a prog band, it says here. They had different singers. Then they have released a 7-inch called Rock Is Here in 1976. And then their third album, Painkiller. Then they saw AC/DC, it says. I mean, okay. In 1979 started their new style, Metal Rendezvous. There you go. I mean, it doesn't tell me how many albums they've sold. We can tell probably they haven't edited the page.
They're one of those bands that it's surprisingly, like, do you ever see people wearing their t-shirts at, you know, gigs, or like, they're not really, not one of those bands that people seem to be enamored with from this era, you know.
No, there's something about them that just hasn't quite. You don't see somebody at Musco Rock, some 18-year-old rocking a Crocus shirt. It's not, you know, there aren't people paying €350 for their t-shirts on, you know.
Which is strange because
Yeah,
most of the bands in this list you could probably say are now more popular than they were back in the day. But I would say that's not the case with Crocus. They probably were more popular back then than they are now.
Well, I mean, I don't know about, I mean, it depends what you mean. I mean, most of the bands we're talking about, the albums we're talking about sold hundreds of thousands of copies. That whereas now would, you know, probably have like 100,000 people follow them on Spotify, but they're not selling any records, you know. But it really,
Yeah.
And the thing about Crocus was long stick goes boom. That's the one which has the BLT line. I'm pretty sure I heard when I was a kid, and I was like, I'm not listening to a band who has a song title called this.
See, that was probably again trying to like they seemed like they were playing for the American audience a little bit, weren't they?
But you think they'd have got somebody who understood English probably to help them with the lyrics? I think that are they trying to do a "Let Me Put My Love Into You"? There, you know, long stick goes boom. It's trying to be Bon Scott style innuendo, isn't it?
It's certainly a notable record because it was so successful. But I think most people would be mystified by why it was so successful. Like it is good and it is boogie rocking good times, but I don't know.
Well, who else is kind of? I mean, it's when you do listen to Headhunter, it's got some like it's quite tight double pedal, and it's quite, you know, it's got a quite hard guitar tone, and he's a good singer, Mark Storas, whatever his name is, you know. But they tried to do Ballroom Blitz, which was which is trying to copy the.
Like this is whenever the formula began, wasn't it? Like, you know, like Come On, Feel the Noise.
Mm.
Quite right. Didn't they do another Slade song on their second record?
Yeah, it's quite right. I had to try to follow it up with, and Mama's Boys did it as well. Mama's Boys did "We're All Crazy Now." I'm just okay. Heart Attack.
It's weird, isn't it? Like if you think about that being in effect in 1982, that sort of mentality was still existing at the end of the decade. Whenever people were like, "I know what Onslaught or Acid Rain should do is like an awful cover version. That'll wake up the neighbors," you know.
But the new metal bands were doing it as well. Remember, they all had goes at doing 80s pop songs as well. I mean, you had Disturbed and fucking all the bands. You know, what was it? I mean, even Marilyn Manson did it with his cover of Eurythmics and stuff, didn't he? You know.
Yeah, but see, I suppose what I'd say is that Marilyn Manson probably built his audience on the strength of his own material, whereas I think Disturbed were like, if you think that this shit version of this Simon Garfunkel song is good, you're probably going to like the rest of our shit music, you know. So come on board.
Well, they're still playing Crocus.
They are, despite Dee Snider's best efforts to destroy them.
Is that what he tried to do?
They had a falling out over wardrobe, so they did. Dee Snider's wife makes clothes for band,
right?
And Crocus ordered a bunch of the clothes and then didn't like them, so they burned them and sent Dee Snider photos of them and burned them. Mostly because and this has been going on for 30x years. The guy from Crocus will speak about it saying, "Yeah, you know, I keep trying to mend fences with Dee Snider, but he doesn't want to know, like, and you know, Dee Snider will get them kicked off festivals and etc. 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 Like, you know,
that's fucking brilliant. Still carrying on the grudge. I love it. Fucking brilliant.
You can't beat that. There's a totally unrelated, but that band Mr. Bungle have a similar thing with Red Hot Chili Peppers. The Red Hot Chili Peppers hate them, and anytime they're booked to do a festival, they're like, "No, if these guys are on the bill, we're not doing it." So,
but is it Mr. Bungle? Isn't that Mike Patton or something? Mr. Bungle.
Yeah, but like if you look at, you know, the early Faith No More kind of, you know, his way going on and stuff was very much kind of a bit of a rip off of the way Anthony Kiedis from the Chili Peppers went on, isn't it? Like, so
was it?
Yeah, I think that was the deal. You were very busy at that time digging a grave in a different manner, as they say.
I was. There's few bands I hate more than. I mean, the Chili Peppers are possibly the worst rock band ever. I mean, it's abysmal. Faith No More I saw in '89. They've got more to them, but I didn't like it. But Mr. Bungle, all that shit, I fucking hate it. We've been through
Yeah,
this
but like what
many
I would say
times
about
before.
and stuff is like whenever they were originally being pitched, the Chili Peppers and Faith No More, it was to kind of like the Metallica crowd and stuff, like crying and stuff. Were like, listen, this is going to be the next thing, and
Yeah,
this is heavy music. It's just heavy in a different way,
yeah, funky bits and blah blah blah. Well, but I mean, I think no more the real thing was a huge record. I'm curious. I mean, I'm curious to move on to the next picture, which is "Fateful Breath," "Hard Breath," which is a dude playing the guitar wearing like a Viking fur kind of top and a horned helmet. Sorry to move us off funk metal, but that is some album cover. I've never heard this record. I have "Fateful Breath." They have an album called "Something in Glory," silver and gold, silver and glory, and it's got like a funny little Viking ship on it. It's actually not bad.
Next.
Okay, Cobra, First Strike. I know King Cobra. I don't know Cobra. Never heard this. It looks like. Are you looking at the same thing I'm looking at?
Yep.
Yeah, it's not surprising I never connected with this one. It might be good.
There certainly was a little bit of an aspect of that, man, going through vinyl bins and stuff back in the day where, the reason why people bought the first Iron Maiden album was the cover looked cool. And the reason why people didn't buy that Battle Axe album is because one of his friends was doing A-level art or, said, I can do the cover, no problem.
Yeah, but what I love about that, and I remember talking about this before, was that I love the fact that someone somewhere went, that's the fucking one. That's the fucking painting. I fucking love it. Like I love EXE, Stricken by Might, with a huge kind of like bug-eyed sort of dude ripping apart these columns and
when you were posting the best one ever, Power and Pain by Whiplash, and like,
yeah,
I was talking to the guys from Artillery about the cover for Terror Squad Fear Tomorrow, Terror Squad.
So bad, so fucking bad.
He said like that they recorded the album and sent it to Neat Records, and Neat Records were like, where's the cover? And they were like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, yeah, well, you're gonna have to get one of your friends or something to design this, because which is a great window into how Neat Records was running back then. They were just saying to these bands, listen, you find your own cover for the record, man.
I didn't even realize that Artillery were on Neat Records. See, I was never a big Artillery fan. I mean, I like Terror Squad, like cool riffs and stuff, but I think I was probably put off by the stupid artwork in 1987 or 88,
Yeah, I think they sort of dropped the ball a little bit because, they were certainly kind of like around and popular-ish in the early 80s, and they just kind of...
They had riffs. They were just one of those bands that just sort of escaped my attention when I was a kid.
I think if By Inheritance had have came out in 1986, it would have been a hugely different story. People would be being like, holy shit, these guys invented a style of, heavy metal, but probably just all a little bit too late by then,
Next is Warlord. Deliver Us. I'm a big Warlord fan.
Yep.
Cannons of Destruction have begun, and I mean, they're kind of...
Would you say this like straddles the line between heavy metal and hard rock? Is it sort of...
It's more... No, this is more like trad metal. This is more like... I mean, I think this is more epic heavy metal almost even, I mean, there's some fucking bangers on this album. I remember they were quite hard to find back in the day. I never really understood the kind of stuff around Warlord, because at the time you don't really know, and they were like a sort of Christian heavy metal band. But the Cannons of Destruction begun the next one. It had a kind of video theme and a kind of weird live. There was something about that confused me a lot when I was a kid. But this has Child of the Damned on it. I mean, it's got Lucifer's Hammer, Black Mass. I mean, it's
fairly evil content, really, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, Child of the Damned is a stone cold classic, and they were doing these weird sort of... There was a weird theme around this band that I didn't really understand. Are they Canadian? No, they're not.
Oh, wow, I would have definitely taken them for being Englishmen.
No, they're American. It was recorded in Sound and Vision Studios, North Hollywood. Length 27 minutes. Mark Zonder is the drummer. Was he something to do with Fate's Warning as well? I've got lots of Greeks now in the comments are going to be like, you don't know your Warlord history. But yeah.
You are a coward. You are a coward in the face of heavy metal.
Yeah, there was something going on. They all had names, didn't they? Like evil names. Damien King, Destroyer, Thunderchild, Sentinel. And there was some sort of Christian sort of metal going on. But the album was re-released in 2012. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fucking great record. What's next on the list?
Again, like probably a very keep it true muscle rock type band, really, isn't it? Like
yeah, they did make an album about 7 or 8 or 9 years ago that was really good. I remember being really impressed with it. Next is Lita Ford, Out for Blood. I've never heard this record. I mean,
so this is the one she made after leaving the Runaways, or the Runaways broke up before. What's her, Kiss Me Deadly and those kind of ones later. Yeah, she was getting someone else to write the songs and doing other stuff around then. But I think this era was just.
Well, are you looking at the album cover? I mean, she's in a spider web of chains in her kind of underwear-ish, but her guitar is ripped in half and there's like blood coming out of it. Wow.
Yep.
I mean, you can't really argue with that. I've said it before in this. I saw Lita Ford playing at Bang Your Head, and it was fucking hilarious because the guitar player's rig went down in the first song, leaving her to play as the only guitar, and she got boosted up. It was like,
yeah,
it was all over the place, and her singing was all over the place. And being uncharitable, that was.
But again, it's very hard to like guess what is the crowd. Like, could Lita Ford, I don't know, if she was playing in Ireland, would she be playing the Grand Social, or would she be playing in, Temple Bar Music Centre? You might be surprised how many people out there would be into that kind of thing,
I'd say in Belfast she could do a fucking 1,000 people.
1,000 people.
Okay. Well, she could do like, I'd say she'd do 600, 700, or 800, wouldn't she? That stuff was always more popular up the north.
Yeah, I think certainly there's like, she has a following, but again, like, it's quiet rat-esque material. If you stick on this record, I guarantee you'll turn it off immediately. Like,
no, it's fucking rubbish. I'm sure it's rubbish, but it's just the context of what kind of rubbish it is. I don't recognize the next one at all. Overdrive, Metal Attack, very muscular man using a guitar in what looks like a bow and arrow kind of situation. But he's I mean, there's some sort of law of dynamics he's not really adhering to because he's snapping this guitar. So, oh no, it's a snake.
Hold on.
Can you see what's going on there?
I think that perspective was not on their minds. Like, they were just being like, the idea there should be a really muscly man on the cover, and anything else is a bonus.
It's very muscly. Also, the logo looks a bit kind of like Kabbalic, sort of Jewish or something, doesn't it? It looks like it would be, I'm not sure what it would look like. Well, I mean, and then as I scroll up, well, you have Iron Maiden, Peace of Mind. I mean, this could be my favorite Iron Maiden record, maybe.
Oh, it's definitely my favorite, man. Definitely. Like, I love some of their other albums hugely, but this one is like, it has everything going for it,
It's my
really
first.
Top to bottom. I remember looking through them. Actually, we might have done this on a previous show, and like counting records that had more than, say, 6 good songs. Because there's albums that are brilliant, like Power Slave, but maybe there are actually only 6 of the 8 or 9 songs are absolute killers. Whereas this one is really good. Like,
I was arguing of this during the week, and it was all because I found a pair of baby blue Seventh Son of a Seventh Son board shorts, which I think I sent you a picture of. That somehow I want to own them. But my mate from Winterfell, he goes, man, there isn't a bad song on Seventh Son. There isn't even, he goes, they're all bangers. And I was going, yeah. And he goes, that's why Seventh Son is the greatest Iron Maiden album. I was like,
I think that songs like The Clairvoyant, like, and there's one at the very end of the album as well that I'm not really as into. Whereas I like all the songs near the end of the, like, Dune and, Sun and Steel and
To Tame a Land, and
yeah, like all those songs are all great. Like, I think it ends very, very convincing way,
Well, side one of Peace of Mind is fucking powerful as fuck. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. That's just a whole side A of bangers that I re-listen to.
I think side 2 is incredible as well. Like, Still Life is one of my favorite songs from that era.
It is incredible. What's the one where he mixes up the lyrics with the fucking dinosaurs and men running around, and in a time
dinosaurs rule the earth, which is a song, like a line that most people be all like, haha, and Iron Maiden fans are like, what's wrong with that? It's good. And it is good.
I mean, I think any one of the first whole bunch of made in 80 to 88, and you could argue the toss for any one of the albums being the best. I would listen to any argument.
I do think that maybe like Killers has got some songs on it that I don't think are really as good as I would like them to be, you know.
Killers I think Killers is a weird album. It's the dark horse of all of the early albums. It's also kind of the hardest. Like, it's a very hard tone, and it's got some side 2 of it. It's quite exacting in a sense. I remember being a kid and thinking, well, this is a bit heavier than everything else. Somehow it was quite a dark record, you know. But I don't know. I mean, ask Kieran from Primordial. He's like that. That's my banger, man. Killers. Mm-hmm. Like, hard to argue with that, you know.
But like, my initial reaction to that would be, I think it's a bit front loaded, because like there's no denying songs like Murders in the Rue Morgue and, you know, Killers and Wrathchild and things of that nature. But I think the further into side 2 you get and stuff, it is a wee bit more, I don't know.
I quite like Drifter. I like Drifter and stuff, you know. I think it's got Transylvania on it, hasn't it? It's got Innocent Exile, I think, is
Twilight Zone on that, is it? Or is that
no, Twilight Zone is
Purgatory on it and stuff as well, isn't
Purgatory's on it, yeah. Purgatory's a banger.
Like, yeah, so obviously Peace of Mind, such an important album in terms of Maiden, because, you know, Number of the Beast was a fantastic record, but there's a lot of bands who would have come up with something maybe not quite as good afterwards, and I think they pleased their fan base hugely, didn't they?
Oh, I mean, and also the aesthetic, the artwork is killer. It's got a kind of darker tone. It's where Maiden are really they're really establishing themselves as a sort of a kind of songwriting cut above everything. And the production is massive. Again, like, you play these records compared to almost every other band, and just and you're like, fucking hell, this just sounds huge. Still play it now, it just makes everything.
And I think as well, man, like an amazing album cover, and just everything was like running on all cylinders. The songwriting, the lineup, the artwork, everything was just
first with Nico McBrain as well.
Yeah. So, like, you know, there's probably people who are listening to this have probably heard enough people talking about how amazing that record is.
Okay.
Whereas
now, the next one is Baron Rojo. But the Red Baron. Spanish heavy metal. I never heard Baron Rojo. And this artwork is fucking wild. Are you looking at this?
It must be from, like, this is from the era of Franco still being in charge, isn't it, in Spain? You know, this is before
Franco. Yeah, Franco didn't fuck off to like 1988 or something, 87, did he?
I think it was maybe 86 or around then. But I know that like it would have been still whenever they're having a hard old time.
Yeah,
and it wasn't really, like, I don't think they had bands like Maiden and stuff like that. It was only around then that they started touring in Spain. Spain hadn't really opened up.
Hang on. I'm just fucking fact checking us here. He died in 1975.
Franco did he?
Yeah, because I was thinking about that. Because you have Salazar in Portugal, and then the Greek sort of crypto-fascist stuff, they all fell in about 75, 76, but it took a long time for them to unwind the country from the sort of...
Yeah, I thought for some reason Spain it was the early 80s, but...
It took them a while to get, basically to dismantle some of the militaristic structure, I think, and they didn't start to see a sort of a major kind of societal pull away. I just listened to a big podcast about it, fascinating thing, dictators, until the early 80s. But yeah, I mean, dark fucking stuff, the White Terror, Jesus Christ. If people, anyway, we're not going to talk about that. We'll leave that for another day, but it's fucking dark shit. But Baron this would be after, it'd be after that. The cover is wild. It's like, it is the Red Baron flying in the sky, but he appears to be like he appears to be dead, still flying his plane.
He's still flying, is what they're trying to suggest to you, that somewhere over Zaragoza, he's shooting up whatever you fancy. Like, again, like, sort of same as what I would say about some of the French stuff. Was it ever intended for people outside of the native country, do you think, or not? Or I
don't know. I think what it is that some of these bands, it's like people were just so enthusiastic and people hadn't really learned English very well, and they're like, let's just do it in our own language. It wasn't really, I don't know whether they were even thinking about it. They were just like, well, we speak French, we're going to sing in French. I mean, you know, it has a charm to it without being condescending, but it's, you know, you're not going to be Judas Priest or Iron Maiden. But then again, they're just doing what they're doing, you know. But
I like they were probably also again looking at a band like Trust, who were out there supporting Iron Maiden and doing very well,
yeah,
singing in their own language, you know. So
yeah, there's nothing wrong. And don't forget singing in Spanish, or you know, you've got potential huge Mexican audience, and I never listened.
We did a song in Spanish once, and
Yeah.
Spanish people come up to us and they're just like, don't understand anything that you're saying. Like, you know, your pronunciation is so bad on this that it just fucking makes you look like dicks. And we're like, okay.
Oh, well, we got that when we did the first song, the first album in Irish, and it was the only thing we ever did in Irish. It was like, I was like, Mafia Wilga Joe, it's all simple enough. My mates were like, you fucking, your West Brit fucking bullshit accent. I was like, I'm trying to put diction into it, and they're just like, not what you do. Next to Trance, Power Infusion.
It's one of my favorite album covers of all time. Like, look at that bad boy. Like, is that not like, it's like what Exciter wanted to be the cover of their record, isn't it? Like, you know.
Well, I mean, I think the cover of Heavy Metal Maniac is a stone cold classic. But this,
you think it's better than this Amazing Trance album cover now?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I like the fact they've changed the Marshall logo to blue, as in blue blood. I think blue. I mean, does that what they're trying to do? Or
I don't even think they might have known it. Like, it could even be that they had an endorsement from some Benelux cabinet manufacturers or whatever.
No, we'll have to say, for people who are just listening to this and not looking, you really need to look at. I'll bring them up on the screen. But this is
we'll add it in the description here.
This is like somebody like a very muscly, very muscly arm again. And then a sort of lead going from a muscly arm into the amp, and they're getting a power infusion. I mean,
which is strange, because you would imagine that you would be getting the power from the amp into your body, whereas it seems to be the other way around. His muscly arms are what's powering the block. You know, so? That's what comes out of the speaker. Yeah,
I'm not sure, but I like the touch of he's being held in place by another hard rocking fan with a little gauntlet.
But like, man, I so see this style of album cover. Like, I know there's not really an awful lot to say, to be honest, about the content of these trance records, but man, the two album covers are fantastic. Like, we need to see more photo session album covers like this.
Yeah, that's one thing that's definitely missing is setup. Somebody's taken ages to set these things up. They've taken a whole day with this to try and get the right picture, and then we spent the fucking money now. We have to go with it. We're transferred.
The cover of their other album is a coffin, and there's a hand coming out of the coffin to reach a guitar. You know,
Trance are Dutch, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I never heard this record. I mean, May the 25th, Dio, Holy Diver. Okay. I mean, look at now. If we're just, you know, we probably said all there is to say about Dio in a way, but this is dark artwork. It's fucking dark. Look at it. It's brilliant.
It would have been like, this is the sort of thing that would have massively concerned, you know, people who are burning records were looking at the cover of Iron Maiden albums and looking at the cover of that Dio record and being like, it's a priest. Like, they're drowning a priest in chains. Like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's you don't really realize. I mean, this is Dio's first album, May the 25th. It's been certified gold in the US by 1984, platinum by 1989. What was platinum?
Million.
So it doesn't tell me exactly. I mean, there's some strange things going on here. Sweet Savage, Caught in the Middle is straight to the heart from Sweet Savage. I mean, Vivian Campbell just took his riffs from one and went to the other, you know?
Yep. Well, that was very common, you know, Kirk Hammett, Exodus, and etc. You know, a good riff's a good riff at the end of the day. Yeah, like, it's one of those albums that, I don't know, it's just so essential, isn't it? Like, and it's crazy to think of this. Like, we're not even halfway through the year yet, and, you know, Peace of Mind, this Dio album, Quiet Rat, you know, Pyromania, these are all records that blew the metal scene into existence.
I mean, the thing about this record, this is a band playing, I mean, for their lives. I mean, when you listen to it now, there's so much vital sounding energy just coming off this record. Of course, the vocals are incredible. The drum sound is amazing. Vivian Campbell is playing off the charts. Jimmy Bain is killing it. I mean, they're literally jammed to within an inch of their lives, and
I agree. And like I think that's one of the great things that they insisted on with it, having Claude Schnell in there playing keyboards so that the music would have an epic scale when he wanted it to, you know.
Yeah.
Songs could rock just like, you know, stand up and shout, but if they wanted, they could really, you know, do different styles of stuff, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fucking peerless record. I mean, and also you can hear the difference. I mean, you just know when you go through this list, and you know, of course, you can't expect all the B division bands to have the same production as Dio, etc. But some of any of those are kind of rickety performances and natty sounding production. Then you put on Peace of Mind, you're like, oh yeah, and Holy Diver. You can just hear it's just so much, and it's not just about money. These were bands that were just superior singing
in but also in the way that they were treated like very serious products, you know, where like, you know, before Pyromania came out, they were out supporting Rush, you know, in America, you know, to introduce them to the like their audience. And it's the same thing with Maiden, you know, people are tactically putting tours together to get them into an arena. You know, Dio, Queensryche with a support band on that, like, you know, it's not really on our list because it's an EP, but like, man, in terms of EPs, is there any greater? Maybe some, but like,
no,
like, you know,
it's staggering. Every part of it, the artwork staggering, production, playing, the songwriting. There isn't. It's an album without a single piece of fat or flab on it. It's just.
I think that's the thing, man. Like, it goes to show you, like take another one coming up here, but like Satan, Courtney Act, like brilliant album. But like, if it had had the production of the Dio album or the management and booking agency behind something like that, you know. But it wasn't commercial enough, I don't think, you know.
It's a brilliant record, Satan, Courtney. We might as well skip the other three shite ones in between. I'll bring them up briefly on the screen maybe. But Courtney Act is a brilliant record. We played with them a few months ago and they kicked our ass and they were still great. And Brian Ross is like, what, 68, 66, 67? Still sounds amazing. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a Metal Blade Records, isn't it? Courtney Act, maybe.
I'm not sure. It seems to be to me, one of those records that really kind of seemed very important on the west coast of America in the early 80s, like the first Angel Witch record, where, you know, maybe if the band, like if Angel Witch or Satan had been in America, they probably would have had a successful career in the 80s, whereas, you know, there was, you know, especially, well, those two bands, case they were sitting in England looking at bands overtaking them left, right and centre, really, you know?
Yeah. It's hard to know just exactly. Courtney Act 83 and then Suspended Sentence 87. Hang on, maybe did Brian Ross sing on this record? I'm not sure. Or was he kicked out? Or
I think he did. Because the singer before it was the guy from Avenger, Tony Swift or whatever his name is, Ian Swift.
So Suspended Sentence is the one that he's missing on.
Yeah, because I think around Suspended Sentence, they had a different singer. They had a singer whose name was Michael Jackson in for a while, and then they changed the name to Pariah.
Yeah.
Which now all seems funny, doesn't it? Like, you know.
Yeah, I know, great record. Then a record that I've come. I mean, at the time, I guess it got a lot of stick, but I think it's a fucking brilliant record, and that's Motorhead, Another Perfect Day. I think this is a brilliant Motorhead record. It's tasteful. It's got a kind of melancholy to some of the playing, you know. Dancing on Your Grave.
You know, like that's the kind of thing, isn't it? Like, you know, Brian Robinson was able to come in and fucking inject a different sort of style of fucking even approach to guitar. But like, I suppose these albums are quite similar in the sense that, like, at the time, Courtney Act was certainly, like, you know, didn't make a big splash. And, you know, Another Perfect Day was not well received in a lot of quarters. And, you know, nowadays the people who are going to Muscle Rock or whatever, or Hellfest, don't have those associations with it. They're just saying, here's this amazing Satan album, or here's this amazing Motorhead album. They don't have an agenda with it, you know?
I think the thing about it is that Brian Robinson, despite the songwriting being okay, I mean, he just was ridiculous live and sort of set about dismantling what the band were. But I mean, just that we did it on the thing I did with Addy from Sulzer, Back of the Funny Farm, Shine, great, Dancing on Your Grave, Rocket, One Track Mind, The Perfect Day,
Marching Up the War, man. One of the best songs. Rocket just looks so good.
I Got Mine, Tales of Glory, Die, You Bastard. Just, I mean, it's a brilliant record. I mean, it really, really is.
I would say, for me, it's their best record. I love it. Like, you know, it and Rock and Roll, just think they really, really picked great songs for it, you know.
I'm not sure if it's my favorite, but it's certainly my top. Yeah, it might be. Certainly it's in my top 2 or 3. You know, you're about to be cut off again. I sent you another one.
Okay.